How's it going, guys? Today we're going to start a new series here on my YouTube channel where we cover everything Moonkin related. These videos in this series are going to cover spells, abilities, rotation. We'll get more in depth later on with our spellbook and not like abilities that you don't use all the time, but is that still important, passive abilities and stuff like that. I will talk about talents, glyphs, gear, Highmaul and Blackrock Foundry fights or Tier 17 fights if you want to call them that. And we'll talk about how all of these things should affect your gameplay in a raiding environment in different situations. We'll also eventually end up covering tips and tricks to just help you do better DPS as a Moonkin in general, and some more advanced stuff. Hopefully even the best of Moonkin should learn something from those videos at the end. This first video, however, will only be about spells and abilities that are extremely basic, and as well as the Eclipse bar, as the title suggests. If you were looking to see something else about Moonkins that isn't related to that, feel free to click on one of the annotations on the screen if I remember to put them there. For some reason I haven't covered any, or I haven't covered whatever it is you're looking for, please post about it in the comments down below, and I'll make a video for it ASAP as possible. Now, as I said earlier in this video, we're going to only be covering the most basic of all things, our Eclipse bar and our spells. Every Moonkin should be comfortable with our new Eclipse bar, as well as our spells, like our basic spells. You should know when they can be used, as well as when they should be used. But let's start out with our Eclipse bar. Our Eclipse bar moves from left to right, and each side of the bar is a different eclipse. The left half is called Lunar Eclipse, and the right half is called Solar Eclipse. The idea behind the class is kind of this moon and sun, yin and yang kind of deal. Our lunar side buffs are arcane spells, while our solar side buffs are nature spells. So the abilities that we have that deal arcane damage are Moonfire, Starfire, and Starfall, and these abilities should be used on the left side of your bar, or the lunar side, since they're going to do more damage there. Now the major abilities we have that deal nature damage, or abilities that we should be using in solar, are Sunfire and Wrath. They'll do more damage on the right side of your bar. Something interesting to note is, what did I want to say about this? Something interesting to note is that you only have the ability to use Moonfire while on Lunar, or the left side of your bar, and you only have the ability to use Sunfire on the right side of your bar. These two are actually the same ability, however, it just depends on which eclipse you're in, which you can use. So I already mentioned 5 of the abilities that we'll be covering. The 2 I didn't mention will be Star Surge and Celestial Alignment, and we'll cover those eventually too. Now, there's a lot of spells in our spellbook that have similar names, and a lot of words with star, or moon, or fire, but fear not, you'll get the hang of it eventually, and over time you'll remember which is which. So let's start with our dots, or damage over time abilities. We have 2. We have Moonfire and Sunfire, as I mentioned earlier, and I'll go ahead and find them in the spellbook right now. Sunfire is not actually in the spellbook, it's just Moonfire, but when you get to the right half of your bar, it'll transform itself into Sunfire by some kind of magic means that we don't know how it works, it just happens, it's beautiful. So while on the left side of your bar you want to be applying Moonfire, while on the right side of your bar you want to be applying Sunfire. Typically you don't have a choice, but these 2 abilities deal damage over time, and you should try and keep them up on all targets as much as possible. Remember that you can only apply Moonfire while on the left and Sunfire while on the right. You should note that these abilities are instant cast. You can apply them anytime you're facing your target and you're in range, even while you're moving. So I can go ahead and demonstrate that here. I'll apply Moonfire and move at the same time. Beautiful. Now I can't apply Sunfire yet. I'm going to have to wait a second because remember I'm on the left side of my bar, but now that I'm on the right side of my bar, I can apply Sunfire. Now a very interesting thing to note about Sunfire is that it cleaves. So if I apply one Sunfire, see it's 16 seconds remaining, but if I apply it again, it's 30. Same with these. 30. It cleaves, so that means any mobs that are stacked underneath the one that you apply the Sunfire to, it'll apply it to those as well. Alright, so that's 2 abilities down and like 5 to go for this video. So let's talk about Starfire and Wrath. So just like Moonfire and Sunfire, you use these 2 abilities while in different eclipse states. However, unlike Moonfire and Sunfire, they don't deal damage over time. They deal damage all at once. So Starfire deals arcane damage, blah 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 blah, so you'll want to be using it in Lunar or the left side of your Eclipse bar, while Wrath deals nature damage, so you'll want to be using it while in Solar. Now, both of these abilities are hard cast. I'll go ahead and demonstrate it here. Look at my cast. They're hard cast, so if I were to stop moving partway through the cast, it goes ahead and it stops it for me because the game doesn't like it when I move. So just remember that whenever you're casting Starfire or Wrath, you don't want to be moving, otherwise you'll cut your ability short and it won't cast. I think that's all I want to talk about those. Okay. Let's move on to Star Surge. So Star Surge is kind of like Moonfire, where it's instant cast, but it's kind of like Starfire, where it does all of its damage at once instead of any damage over time. Now you can use Star Surge at any point in your Eclipse bar, which is why I didn't mention it earlier. And since it does both arcane and nature damage, it'll pretty much always be doing the same amount of damage. But since Star Surge does a large amount of damage on one target, you'll typically want to use this ability when there's only one target. That sounds a little bit obvious, but hear me out. Just wait for the next paragraph to roll around. It'll kind of make a bit more sense. So Star Surge works on Charge System with our next ability, Starfall. They both share a 30-second cooldown, but since there's 3 charges baseline, the cooldown isn't as noticeable. There's also a mechanic that we'll talk about in a couple videos from now where you can refresh a charge just by chance. So I said that you should be using Star Surge with one target, so this is a good segue into Starfall. You use Starfall when there are multiple targets. So when it's AoE or when there's a whole bunch of targets like these training dummies that are spread out. I'll go ahead and I'll demonstrate Starfall right now. Starfall, it's dealing damage to all these targets, any targets that are in range. Star Surge, it's just one, it's just single target. It hits that one target and it does a sizable amount of damage. Now Starfall, while Star Surge does damage in both Eclipse states pretty well, Starfall does only arcane damage, so you're going to be wanting to use this one on the left side of your bar. However, Starfall does so much damage when there's a lot of mobs out. It means that if there are 2 or more targets, Starfall will typically be better than Star Surge. There's some exceptions, but again, we won't talk about that for a few videos. Do remember that they share charges, so you'll have to decide which is better at the time you want to use it. Again, remember that Starfall does more damage the more targets there are. Right, so one last ability before we end up signing off, and it's going to be Celestial Alignment. Now, Celestial Alignment is our big cooldown. It's baseline, and every Balance Druid has it. So it's a 3-minute cooldown to be exact, and basically what happens is for 15 seconds after casting it, we do a whole bunch of damage. Something that's really interesting about Celestial Alignment is that it makes it so our Moonfire also applies our Sunfire, and vice versa. So this makes dotting multiple targets like these training dummies in front of me very easy. Now I'll cover Celestial Alignment a lot more in 2 videos from now, so stay tuned because there's a lot more to talk about it. But I'll go ahead and I'll show you what it looks like. I haven't been going over all these abilities as I wanted to. There's Moonfire, Starfire, Starfall. Remember all the stars and stuff, so you'll have to get used to that as you get better with Balance. Star Surge, and Wrath. And one last ability before we sign off is Celestial Alignment. Right, and we will go ahead and demonstrate Celestial Alignment right now. So none of these mobs have dots on them. Remember, if I were to apply Sunfire, that it would apply it to any mobs nearby. Now, I'm not on the right side of my bar. I'll be moving to the left side of my bar first, so I won't be able to apply Sunfire. But if I pop Celestial Alignment and apply my Moonfire, it'll also apply Sunfire. So I have both dots on this one and only 1 dot on the other 2 because I didn't apply Moonfire to them. Sunfire just cleaved onto them. So I apply both my dots to all these mobs. See, both of my dots are on there. You can look at it down here too. And it's pretty interesting. Okay, so that was Celestial Alignment, but before we go, I'll give you guys one last big tip on learning Balance Druid quicker. For when you're starting out, it might be a good idea to use the same keybinds that I'm using right now. They're a little small. I probably should have made them bigger, but I'll read it off to you guys just to be sure. So I put Moonfire and Sunfire on 1, since I'll probably be hitting it a lot, especially when there are a lot of enemies nearby. I typically put Star Surge on 2, since it's good on either the left or right side of the bar. I put Starfire on 3 and Wrath on 4. Now this is important because when you're learning Balance Druid, sometimes it's hard to remember which abilities you should be using on which side. This is easy though. If I'm in combat with something, and I'm on the left side, I want to hit the ability on the left. So if you ever forget, you can just look down at your bar and you'll use the one on the left, and then later on you'll use the one on the right. You'll use Wrath when you're on the right side of the bar. So Starfire on left, Wrath on right. Easy enough to remember. I put Starfall on 5 just because I don't always use it. I only use it when there are a lot of mobs. But it is in my top 5 abilities that I use, so I might as well put it on 5. And I put Celestial on Shift 1 because it's our first major cooldown. There's other cooldowns, but we'll cover those when we get to them in a couple videos from now, because they're not all baseline. So the next video will be all about talents and glyphs, and the video after that will go a lot more in depth about our spellbook and our rotation, because we didn't cover a lot of things in here, so we'll cover that eventually as well. I'd like to thank you guys so much for watching. If this video helped you out at all, please leave a thumbs up or a comment. If you're looking forward to my next few videos, please subscribe. Again, we're going to cover everything about Balance Druid eventually, and it would really help me out a lot if you guys subscribed. But until then, keep flapping your way to victory, my fine feathery friends. Keep flapping.